निशान साथ है इतने के कुछ शुमार नहीं हमारे दीन का क़िस्सों पे मदार नहीं।
I would say religion was given to me on a silver spoon. If I look back at it, I was fortunate enough not only being born into Ahmadiyyat, but also being surrounded by individuals who are devoted to the cause. I never really understood the whys of what I was doing, why I believed in what I believed in. I just did what I was asked, whether that was attending Jamaat events or praying, whatever those actions may be. So if I look back at my life, I don't think I really understood why I did what I did or what my reasoning was for my actions. By the time I was 16, I started questioning whether God existed. And I feel like I had a void inside of me. It's funny when I look back at it now because I always think like, who was I to ever question such a matter? But for some people, I'd say that question actually remains for life. And when this thought wouldn't go away, I expressed it to my parents, and it never really occurred to me, how they'd react. That wasn't really something I thought about at that time. But I guess that was kind of a good thing, because when I did approach them, my parents simply told me to pray for guidance during sajda. So I began doing that every day for some days or weeks on end. And I'd be praying to God, late at night, forehead to the ground, and repeatedly asking that, God, if you exist, please show me a sign. God, if you exist, please show me a sign. And, for quite some time, I didn't receive an answer. But I didn't lose hope. Instead, I just remained persistent. At that time, I remember I was going to a school in a different city, and I used to take the public transit with my brother. And there wasn't really a day where the bus wasn't packed to its max capacity. And on one of those days, I remember that we were able to find some seats. And at some point on the ride, a well-dressed elderly gentleman also got on the bus. But because there was no empty seats, I remember that he was standing. And he was standing right across me, mixed up in a crowd. And sometime later, I remember he came towards me and he asked me my name. And I told him, and I guess based off that, he must have assumed that I'm Muslim. So when I confirmed that, he asked me a couple other questions, and then he just threw this incredible haymaker my way. He said that, I don't know if you know this, but God exists. Whether you think he does or he doesn't, he exists, and I'm here to tell you that he exists. He told me, I remember he told me this 2 times. When he told me this, I had all these emotions going through my heart all at once. It was confusion, it was satisfaction, excitement. And when I look back at it, I don't remember anything too much that happened after that conversation, but one thing I do remember is that I knew that this particular message came to me from God without a question of doubt. That was definitely from God himself, confirming his existence and answering my prayers. When I think about faith, it's an up and down journey. That's the true jihad, the one of self-reformation. It's not really like a off and on switch. It's a very human progression. And God always wants to work with the sincere believers. He never works against them. So this really wasn't the end of my story. In fact, it was just the beginning. And beginnings are never perfect. Even though I had this very firm belief in the existence of God, I still went through a long phase of detachment. But one small decision, I think, changed everything for me. So in 2014, I felt like I needed to get more involved with the Jamaat especially. And at that point, I felt like a different kind of void inside of me. So I reached out to one of my friends, and he mentioned to me that, yeah, I do have some work for you. So, you come join the media team. In 2016, Beloved Hazur came to Canada. And at the same time that Hazur arrived, I remember that I was going through a certain situation that I was so deeply buried in. And I was so blessed at that time because the whole duration of Hazur's tour, no matter which city Hazur went to, I was able to be in very, very close proximity to him physically. And that kind of transcended upon me as well, because I remember when I think back at that time, You know, it just felt like heaven on earth, whether it's the people, reading namaz behind Hazur, all those things combined. And the first of many miracles I experienced at that time was just incredible. So Hazur Anwar graced us with the group Mulakat, and I remember when we lined up to shake his blessed hands, I introduced myself by my grandfather's name. And at that, I remember Hazur smiled, laughed. He looked at me and he said, you know, Kamal kar diya. And he then proceeded to ask me further questions about my family. And all the while, Hazur is holding my arm, you know, and I could feel that aura just radiating all around him. But when the tour ended though, I felt like a piece of my soul left with that. And yet again, there was a void. Except this time, it motivated me to find and seek out God forevermore. That first experience with Khilafat, that really propelled me to go more towards God and religion. You know, I developed this desire and this thirst. And I started doing things that I never imagined I would be able to do earlier on. In 2018, Hazur Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz came to the United States. And I remember that as soon as I got the word, I had already made up my mind that I'm going to take that whole month off. Otherwise, I'd be ready to quit my job. And I remember the following day, I went into my boss's office. I asked, you know, I need this specific amount of time off. And she, without hesitation, approved it. And I started realizing that, you know, this is a point in time where I'm putting my spirituality and my faith above my worldly desires, above whatever my personal desires are. And that was not something I ever thought I could do before. You know, that was never something that would have even occurred to me. That to put my spirituality before the world. And then God inculcated this habit inside of me that, you know, your spirituality, your religion, khilafat, all of this comes before the world. And the more I made these decisions later on in my life, the more God kept blessing me. You know, after that particular job, I found a better job. One where I could pray 5 times a day on time. One where I could attend Jummah every single Friday on time. One where my work is actually scheduled around my faith, not the opposite way around. And every time I made another decision and another decision where I put my faith over the world, God continued and continued to show me miracles in my life.